Namaste and welcome back to the JavaScript classes. In the last class, we understood the need for data types in every single programming language. So in today's class, directly let's deep dive into the different types of data types available in JavaScript. And please understand there are a total of 7 data types in JavaScript. Number, BigInt, string, Boolean, undefined and symbol, null and symbol. There are multiple data types. We will explore each and every one of them in depth. But please try to understand, I would like to start today's class by first explaining or just recapping what we learned before. What we learned before is that in our computer there are two types of memory. One is hard disk, one is RAM. I told you this is secondary memory, this is primary memory, or this is the main memory. This is slow in execution, this is fast in execution. This person can permanently store data, this person can only temporarily store data, right? I hope you remember all this. If not, please go back and watch that class. Now, please try to understand, anything which executes in your computer is always and always inside the RAM. So let's ignore the hard disk for now and focus on the RAM. I will always in my classes be denoting the RAM like this. Am I clear? Now please try to understand, if Google Chrome is executing, that is also inside the RAM. If VS Code is executing, that is also inside the RAM. Any software which you are opening and using in your computer is inside the RAM. Which means, please try to understand, whatever JavaScript code that you are going to execute, that JavaScript program is also inside the RAM only. Am I clear? So it's very important to understand what happens inside the RAM when a program executes. If you study programming from the memory point of view, your clarity will be 100% improved. I can guarantee you that. In fact, whichever programming language I have taught in my life, and I have taught so many languages, C, C++, JavaScript, Java, Python, C#, Scala, Ruby, all of this I have taught from memory point of view only. So please try to understand, now that you understood RAM is very, very important, all I want to say is that this RAM inside which whenever a JavaScript program is executing, JavaScript automatically internally will create two partitions inside the RAM. One partition I will show like this, the second partition I will show like that. What is the names of these two partitions? One of it is called as stack, second one is called as heap. Both are memories only, stack memory, heap memory. Where is stack and heap? Within the RAM itself. Am I clear? Starting from today, whenever I am going to teach you any program in JavaScript, I will be teaching it to you from the point of view of the stack and heap. I hope you understood. And we will be deep diving into this memory even more. Don't worry about it. By the end of this course, you are going to emerge as a next level JavaScript programmer. That is my guarantee to you. Any which way, stack and heap is important. Okay? I'll keep this aside. Now let's come back to data types. Please try to understand, friends. First and foremost, I want to show you how we can be storing integer type data in JavaScript. When I say integers, they are whole numbers. For example, age is an integer, right? For example, the number of people in a classroom is an integer. The number of employees working inside an organization is an integer, right? The population of planet Earth is an integer. So 100%, all these are integers only. Or in simple words, I can call it as whole numbers. There is no fractional part or decimal part to it. Now, how do I store, say, integers in JavaScript? Let's focus. First of all, I'm just going to bring our VS Code in front of us, right? Inside which I have already created one file. Let me just remove this. I've created a file called as exmp.js. Inside this is what we are going to be writing our code. I'll just remove this. Now, please try to understand, friends. Let us assume I want to store the age of a person. Let us assume 23 is the age of the person, right? How are we going to be storing 23? Please try to understand. Always I'll put a semicolon at the end. I'll put a semicolon. Now, this 23, how am I going to store it? Now, what I will do is, I'll just move myself out of the picture so that I don't disturb your view. Now, what I want to show you is, see, this 23, where will I store it? Okay, now come back. Please try to understand. This, my friends, is our RAM. Inside the RAM, this JavaScript code will execute. JavaScript will create two partitions, stack and heap. I'll remove this RAM, I'll only focus on stack and heap. In stack and heap, ignore heap for now. I'll only focus on stack, right? So I'm going to keep this stack memory as a reference for us. Now try to understand. Whenever you want to store a piece of data inside JavaScript, you will have to store this data inside the stack. Now when you're storing it inside the stack, where are you going to store it? Yes? For that, you will have to create one small box like this. Inside this box only I should be storing this 23. Am I clear? Now, what is this box? This box is only in technical words called as a variable. A variable is a piece of memory inside which you can store some data. I hope you are able to understand. Wonderful. Now, like this, there could be many boxes inside the stack, inside which there will be different data stored. How will you identify this piece of data? That is why every single variable should have a name. Without the name, you can't identify it, you can't find it. Let us assume I will call this variable as A, right? Now, this A is only technically called as the name, or in even more technical language called as the identifier. That is how you identify this variable. Now, whatever I verbally said, see how you can do it in JavaScript. I'll just go here and I will say this 23, please give it to assignment. Assignment means give it. Okay. Now, here what I want to say is, who do I want to give it to? I want to give it to a variable whose name is A, like this. Now, here you must always go in JavaScript and say let, like this. Friends, this is called as syntax. This is technically called as syntax. This is only called as syntax. How are you able to understand? Syntax means it is the rules of a language using which you must type. You can't type it however you want. You can't say, okay, A should be equal to 20. You can't type like that. JavaScript doesn't recognize that. That is called as syntax. But what does this mean? Inside the stack, create a variable. Inside the variable, store 23. And that variable, give it a name called as A. I hope all of you understood this much. Wonderful. Now, I will just be going here and I want to print this. How do you print in JavaScript? I already told you, console.log. And inside this I will go, and what I want to print is a value of A. Do not make the mistake of putting it inside double quotes. Then A gets printed. You must only say A. Now, I'll go put a semicolon here. That's it. Now, I want to execute it. How do you execute it? You must bring up the terminal. A command to bring up the terminal is control plus tilde. Okay, so I'll just click on that. And here I was in this mode, so I will just quit it. Okay, or 1 second, I'll just exit this. Right. Now, please try to understand. How do you execute JavaScript outside of your browser? Using node, space. What is the name? exmp.js. Press enter, 23 got printed. Yes, and this is only called a script mode. Hope everybody understood till here. Wonderful. Now, please try to understand. Similarly, let us assume I wanted to store, for example, the number of employees in an organization. Let us assume there are some 2,000 employees, a big company, right? Now, I'll just go execute it again, 2,000. You want to store, say, for example, let us assume you want to store the height of a person, 5 feet 9 inches. Now, this 5 feet 9 inches, unfortunately, is no longer an integer. It's no longer an integer. Yes or no? It's no longer an integer. Because integers are whole numbers. Now, when I say 5.9, height 5 feet 9 inches, or weight 68.2 kilograms, right? Now, these are values which also have a fractional part associated with it, and this is what we call as real numbers. Or in programming language terms, we call it as floating point numbers, right? Now, please try to understand. If in case I were to go back here, bring up my editor here, now try to understand. I want to now be storing 5.9. See, I'll say 5.9 like this. Now, if you notice, 100% if I were to clear the screen and re-execute, 5.9 is getting stored. I will understand. Let us assume I want to store the weight of a person, 68.2 or okay, 68.2 like this. Am I clear? Now, if in case I were to just go here, again clear the screen, and if I were to execute it, you can see it is getting stored. But now, people who are coming from a background of C or C++, who also are, a vast majority of the viewers of this course, must be wondering, hey, this guy is storing integers also inside A. He's storing real numbers also inside A. How is it that this A is able to store different types of data? Because integers are different type, real numbers are different type. My friend, in JavaScript, a variable can store any type of data. Reason, JavaScript is a loosely typed programming language, which means programmer does not have to tell JavaScript what is the type of data you are going to be storing inside a variable. You don't have to tell. JavaScript, depending upon the data you are storing, will automatically decide its type. A programming language in which you don't have to worry about the type and type is decided by the programming language automatically is what we call as loosely typed. But on the other end of the spectrum, we have something called as strongly typed programming languages, which is telling, boss, if you're storing some data inside a variable, it is your job to tell me what is the type of the data as well. For example, if this was Java like this, then I would have to go here and say float. I should tell it is a real number. If in case I wanted to store just 68, then if this was Java, I had to go and say int. Like this, whenever you are storing some data, if you have to also tell the type, this is called as a strongly typed language. But in JavaScript, we don't even have this type concept. We just have to say let automatically JavaScript decides what has to be the type. Am I clear till here? So you don't have to worry about the type, don't have to bother about the type at all. So integers also you can store, real numbers also you can store. I hope you understand. But some of you will have a question. All right, that is great. But what if I want to know what is the type of the value inside this variable? Is there any way for me to check it? 100% there is. Watch it. I will just go here and say console.log, and now I am introducing you to something called as type of space. Whose type do you want to know? You want to know the type of A. I will just go here and say. Am I clear till here? Now if in case I were to do this, I were to go here clear, and if I were to execute it, it will tell you that 68 is of type number. Because please try to understand, in your JavaScript, what you have to understand is integers, real numbers, both are treated as a single entity called as number. Under number, you have integers, you have real numbers. Integers are also numbers, real numbers are also numbers. This is how JavaScript looks at it. So if you store int also, it will tell you number. If you store float also, it will tell you number. So I hope all of you understood the first type of data type in JavaScript, which is number. That's it. I hope you will understand. Am I clear till here? So now that you understood the number data type, and there is really nothing much for me to say because JavaScript makes our life very, very easy. All you need to now do is go and explore the other types of data, because we totally have around 7 to 8 data types, right? Anyways, let's explore the next one. Now that you guys understood about the number data type, which can store integers as well as real numbers, now I want to show you some special numeric values also which number type can store. For example, if I were to go here, okay, instead of 68, let us assume I say, store the result of 1 divided by 0. 1 divided by 0, simple division. Now, if you have ever focused in your mathematics classes, right, I'm sure your teacher would have told you that, hey, listen, any number divided by 0 results in positive infinity. Yes? Obviously, infinity is not a value which can be stored anywhere, but the interesting thing which happens in JavaScript is, if I were to go here and execute this, you can see it is storing a special numeric value called as infinity. Don't think it is storing infinity, it is just saying that it is infinity. But infinity is also treated as a number, right? And you can see, if I see what is the type of A, it is telling type of A is number. Am I clear till here? I hope this part is clear to each and every one of you. Similarly, if I were to do minus 1 divided by 0, now if I were to go clear the screen here and re-execute it, now it is minus infinity, and even minus infinity is a number. Another special numeric value which is JavaScript that it can store is, imagine I do something like this. I will say within double quotes, hello. Now what is this double quotes? Technically this is called as a string. A series of characters is called as a string. A series of characters is called as a string. Now what if I take hello and try to divide hello by 2? Tell me, does it make any sense to divide a string by 2? It makes no sense. Now if in case I were to go here, I were to execute it, look carefully. What did I get? NaN. What is NaN? Not a number. See this? NaN. Not a number. Not a number is also, if you see, check its type, it's numbered. So please understand, integers are numbers, real numbers are numbers, positive infinity, negative infinity are also numbers, and 100% not a number also sometimes you will get, which is also of type number. So these are some special numeric values I wanted to show you. So my friend, we were discussing about number data type in JavaScript, but there is one more data type called as BigInt. Now many people don't really understand when they should be using BigInt. Let me explain it to you, okay? Now please try to understand. Now all of you know how you can create a variable in JavaScript is using a keyword called as let. Let a equal to, like this. Now I will create one variable. Now inside this, obviously if I store 100 like this, right? And if I were to next go and say console, dot console.log, dot log, and if in case I were to print a, and in the next line if I say console.log, and if I were to probably print the type of a, and you know there is an operator called as type of. So if I say type of a like this, I think everybody here can predict the output. If I bring my terminal and if in case I execute it using this node command, you can see 100 is of type number. Now the question that you should be asking yourself is, okay, what is the maximum value that I can be storing inside a variable? Because see, a variable is just a piece of memory inside our RAM, inside our stack. I've already explained this to you. Obviously, no computer has unlimited memory or infinite memory, right? So the question is, how much can we store? Well, there's no need for you to think about it because in JavaScript, they've already given you the range of a number. Because please try to understand, what is a number? You can store integers also, you can store real numbers also. That is what a number is. You can store integers also, you can store real numbers also. Now, I want you to go back to your schooling, right? I'm sure in your schooling, they would have told you that imagine this is a number line. In the middle of the number line, you have 0. On the right side of the number line, you have positive numbers which goes on till infinity. In the left side, you have negative numbers which goes on till infinity. Now, please try to understand, negative numbers are also numbers only and positive numbers are also numbers only, both integer as well as real numbers. Yes or no? So 100% positive and negative, both are integers or both are numbers. Now what you must understand is, think logically. Don't you think there should be a maximum range of the smallest negative number which you can store? Such a number should exist. Similarly, there should be a maximum positive number also which you can store. My friend, the smallest negative number that you can store inside a variable and the largest positive number that you can store inside a variable is only in technical words called as the range of a data type. And in JavaScript, they have already calculated and told you the range of a number is extremely huge. On the negative side, it is 9,007,199,254,740,991. Huge number. Now you go home and count ones, tens, 100,000, 10,000 like that. Right? Huge number. On the positive side, it is the same number, obviously without a negative sign, positive number. If you have to express it in a little more readable format, this is minus 2 raised to the power 53 minus 1. On the other side, it is 2 raised to the power 53 plus 1. Understood what I'm trying to say? Now, this is the range of a number. Basically, what this is trying to say is, you cannot be storing a value which is lesser than this. You cannot be storing a value which is greater than this. In between any value you store, we have no problem. Or really, sir, can you please prove it to us, you may say. Okay, let me prove it to you. Watch this carefully. Now, what I'm going to do is, I'm going to take you back to VS Code. In VS Code, what I'm going to do is, I'm going to put that maximum value. This is that, oh, sorry, something else got copied. This, my dear friends, is that maximum value which I've just noted down here. I'll just copy it and I'll replace it here for you. Right? Huge number. Yes or no? Now let me execute it. I'll just clear the screen, and if in case I execute it, yes, it is expressing it as e to the power 31 in exponent form, but yes, this is the number. Am I clear? And you can see the type is number. Hi guys, sorry to interrupt you, but in this particular discussion I made a small mistake. As you can see, the value of BigInt has been copied twice by me and pasted. In fact, it is not such a large value. The value actually looks like this. So you can notice I've accidentally copied and pasted the same value twice. So please make sure when you go back and practice, you are not doing the mistake that I did here. Other than that, concept wise, it is one and the same. Enjoy the rest of the video. Similarly, if in case I go make this minus also, 100% I will be able to store. Look at this. If I were to execute it, yes, on the negative side. But if genuinely what I said about range is true, you should not be able to store a number lesser than this. You should not be able to store a number greater than the positive side of things. Is that the case? Let's explore. I'll just go here. I'll clear this. I'll remove this terminal. I'll make this positive only. I'll make this positive. Now see, why to try multiple numbers? I'll try one number more. I will make it as 2 or 2, 3, 4, 5. I'll make it as 5. Now if in case I open my terminal and if I execute, you can see the number that I stored is this, but you are getting the same output as last time. Which means even though you are trying to store this number, this is not the number which is getting stored. Please try to understand. So the range has been limited. You can't store more than this. Similarly, if I were to go here and make this as minus, I would save it, and if I were to re-execute it here, you can see it is not storing this number, it is storing that minimum negative value, right? So this is the concept of range, right? Now if you understood the concept of range, then now the question is, what if I want to store a value which is lesser than this or more than this? What if I want to do it? Well, that is a very interesting point. That is why in JavaScript, they told you, if you want to store values which is outside the range of number data type, please make use of BigInt data type. Because BigInt, technically speaking, doesn't have any range. You can literally store any value you want. But you can't actually store any value you want because it is limited to the memory that is available to you. But for all practical purposes, you can store numbers which is larger than this. Now, how do I tell JavaScript this is a BigInt and not a number? Very simple. At the end of the value, you must go and attach something here. What you attach at the end of a value is called as prefix. Sorry, it is called as suffix. Prefix is what you attach at the beginning of a value. Suffix is what you attach at the ending. So, what should I be attaching? Prefix or suffix? Suffix. And the suffix, my friend, is n. What is the suffix? N. Now, if in case I were to go here and I were to execute it, you can clearly see it is storing the exact same value and it is telling the type is BigInt. I hope you understood. So, one thing that is clear to all of you is through this discussion, whenever we want to store an extremely large value which is outside the range of the number data type, we make use of BigInt. How to convert a normal number into a BigInt? By attaching a suffix called as n. That's it. Very, very simple. Now there are few do's and don'ts that you should remember about BigInt. Let me show you. For example, if I were to go here and say 100n like this, even in this case, it will treat it as a BigInt only. Okay, but BigInt is only and only restricted to integers, or in other words, whole numbers. You cannot be using decimal part. For example, I can't say 100.5 like this. I can't do it. If I do it immediately, you can see here only VS Code is saying there is an error, right? And if I try to execute it also, you will see you will be getting an error only. it is telling this is invalid. Sorry. I hope you will understand. Okay, great. That makes sense to us, right? So one point to remember is BigInt can only be used with integers, cannot be used with real numbers or floating point numbers, or you can't have decimal or fractional part. Another thing to remember is, for example, let me remove these two lines. Now I'll go here and I will say let b equal to, and I'll create one more, say 200n like this. Now in the next line I will say console.log and I will try to add these two, a plus b. Am I clear? Now if in case I were to go to the terminal and if I were to execute, yes, I got 100 plus 200, 300, and that 300 is a BigInt. And how do you identify a BigInt? With the n which is attached at the end. Okay, I don't think I need to show you the type of it, but just by looking at this n only you should be able to recognize. Either ways, now what I will do is I'll just go here and I will try to remove this n from here. Now please understand, the moment I remove n, now JavaScript will treat a as BigInt, but it is going to treat b as a number. It will treat a as BigInt, b as a number. Now between two BigInts, you can do any arithmetic operation like addition, subtraction, multiplication, division, modulo. But between a BigInt and a number, you cannot do any arithmetic operation. If you don't believe me, watch this. If I just go here now and if I execute, immediately I'm getting an error saying you cannot mix BigInt and other types. What is this use explicit conversion? We will see what is conversion later. But the point is this failed because reason BigInt number. So long story short, what I wanted to basically explain to you about BigInt is there is a range of a number. If you want to store large values which is outside the range of a number, make use of BigInt. How to make a number into a BigInt? By attaching a suffix n. You cannot be converting a decimal number or a floating point number or numbers which have decimal point into BigInt. BigInt is only for integers, right? Another point is arithmetic operations can be performed between two BigInts, but never between a BigInt and a number. There is nothing more to learn with respect to BigInt. Let's move on to the next data type. Alright, let's continue with our discussion on data types. Now, please understand, we have finished number, we have finished BigInt. Now we are proceeding to something called a string. Now, in very simple words, what is a string? A string is a series of characters. In simple words, it is a series of characters. For example, my name, Rohit, R-O-H-I-T, is a series of characters. It is a string. The company which I am extremely passionate about, which I founded to help lakhs of students, TAP Academy, T-A-P-A-C-A-D-E-M-Y, is a series of characters string. Your name, my name, city name, country name, state name, all these are nothing but strings, right? Series of characters, including your passwords. Now, I will be speaking about strings in depth in a separate video. Strings deserves a separate video, but for now, please understand, I will say let A equal to. And how do you create a string? Within double quotes. Okay, what is the name? For example, I'll call it as TAP Academy, like this. This is a string. So whenever you see double quotes, you should understand it's a string, okay? Now, in the next line, I will just go and I will try to print this. So I'll just say console.log, and inside this I'll just print A. And to show you that it is a string, I will again say console.log, and I want to print the type of A, right? What we have already done. Am I clear till here? Now, if in case I were to go here and execute this code, you can clearly see the type is string. I hope this much is clear to all. Wonderful. Now, I would like to limit my discussion to strings here because, like I said, we will be discussing it in depth. Now, again, in the list of data types, number is over, BigInt is over, string is over. Now, what is Boolean? Now, very simple, friends. Boolean means it is true or false. Or in simple English, yes or no. We didn't understand. What do you mean by true or false, yes or no, sir? You may ask. For example, try to understand. If I say let, and I'll create one variable called as has passport, like this. Now, please try to understand. Clearly, the name only tells, do you have a passport? Either you will say, yes, I have a passport, or no, I don't have a passport. Now, please understand, yes in computer science is true. no in computer science is false. I hope you're able to understand what I'm saying. This is only the meaning of Boolean, right? So in the next line, if I were to say console.log, right? And if I were to just print this has passport, and if I were to also show you the type, so type of say has passport like this, and if I were to now just go here and execute it, you can see false and Boolean. If I were to change this from false, the only other value you can give it is true. And if in case I were to go and I were to clear this and again I were to execute it, you can see true and Boolean. I hope this much is clear to each and every one of you, right? So again, if I bring up the list, number is done. Okay, let me just remove this. Number is done, BigInt is done, string is done, Boolean is done. Now what do you mean by undefined? Try to understand this. What if I say let A? Now I'll not give it any assignment. Instead, I'll just put one semicolon. Till now we were always giving it a value. Now I'll not give it any value, semicolon. Right? Now in the next line, I'll go and say console.log, and what if I print A? That's the question. Because I've not given any value. Now if you don't give any value to a variable in JavaScript, automatically one value is given. That value, my dear friends, is none other than undefined. Yes, name only sells. You have not defined, you have not given any value. And if you want proof, I'll just bring up the terminal, and if in case I were to execute it, you can see undefined. And we want to see the type, you may say. Okay, I'll just copy this line, paste it, and here I'll just go and say type of A, like this. And if I were to now go, clear the screen and execute it, you can see value is also undefined, type is also undefined. Is this much clear to all of you? Now, there are certain things that you have to know about this undefined, which I will go into the depth when I teach you a concept called as hoisting in JavaScript. That time we will look at it in depth. But for today, please try to understand, whenever you create a variable in JavaScript and don't assign it any value, the automatic value is going to be undefined. That's it. Is this much clear to all of you? Wonderful. Which means now what is remaining is nothing but null and symbol. Now these two fellows, I will not be talking about it now, because even if I talk, you'll not understand. When I take up a concept called as object orientation in JavaScript, that time I will come and in depth speak about these two. But be 100% assured, be rest assured that, my friend, there will not be a single topic which I have not taught, which you will come back and then comment and say that you did not explain this. This is going to be the most in-depth JavaScript course you have ever experienced. Thank you so much for listening, and I will catch you in the next class.